What I'm talking about is a weapon that's able to tear apart flesh in a military-style manner,
No,
and
it's
just
not.
is
I wish it
inappropriate
were.
for
I'd get several
any
of them.
regular person to need to own.
The classification of what you would conceive of as assault weapons further is very disturbing because you do not seem to understand what assault weapons actually are. The AR-15 is not an assault weapon. It does not possess select fire capabilities, and that term dates back to the 1940s. When we're talking about an AR-15, we're talking about an intermediate caliber serviceable rifle which is good for medium game. Yes, you can use it for home defense, you can use it for self-defense, you can use it for plinking. It's wonderful. I've considered buying one myself mainly because it pisses many people off, simply because it's the AR-15. There are so many rifles out there, many of which folks like yourself don't want to restrict at all, that are much higher caliber, that are much more deadly, that'll crack apart rifle armor. The AR-15 will require 5 or 6 shots to do that. Try using a 308 or a 50 cal.
Here's the thing about the AR-15. We've seen AR-15 sales in the past, month or since the tragic shooting in Uvalde gone up, 300%? This is a firearm. This is a firearm that people want to purchase. So you're talking about other rifles that aren't being restricted, but this is a firearm that people are aware of. This is a firearm that people want, and this is a firearm that people continue to purchase. Now, here's my issue with the firearm. In the same way that you weren't able to obtain a cannon at the founding of our country, I don't think any person needs a weapon that can tear through and destroy flesh so quickly that it leaves bodies unidentifiable.
Dude, people could obtain a cannon.
Does not need.
People could obtain a cannon at our founding. In fact, they made their own cannons. They also made swivel guns. They had their own warships. This is objective. There is no debate to be had about this. People often own their own cannons. Well into the 19th century, in fact, it wasn't relatively uncommon. The AR-15 round, you do realize the 5.56 round fired from an AR-15 is not actually designed to do massive damage. It's designed to wound. This was actually something I remember when they replaced the older 45 cal weapons, generally speaking, in the U.S. military, at least in part, with the 5.56. One of the prominent arguments against doing so was that the 5.56 tended not to kill people unless you hit a vital organ or the brain or something like that. You hit them in the throat, you hit them in the jugular. The reasoning behind it, and it is kind of gruesome, I would admit that generally, certainly, is that if you wound a person on the battlefield, then the medic has to carry them away. Their friends have to carry them away. Instead of killing one person and their dead body just sits there rotting and going through rigor mortis, you've injured the person and taken several people temporarily off the battlefield because they have to remove the body. That's the whole purpose behind switching to the 5.56, but the AR-15 that is available to civilians is not select fire.
It destroys multiple square inches of flesh and can rip apart organs. And
wait till you see what a 45 can do. So in other words, you want to get rid of all high caliber weapons. So it doesn't matter if it's bolt action, like most sniper rifles, by the way. Those you don't care about. Those will blow a person's head off. It will literally eviscerate the head. Their brain will be everywhere. The AR-15 will not do that. Please look up footage of the firing of these weapons. You go to Demolition Ranch.
The weapon of choice. And so if we are looking towards prevention of these senseless and preventable shootings, then it makes sense that the first weapon that you would go to ban or restrict or to put further background checks on or raise a minimum age limit for would be that weapon that is most popular, that has been most used in these mass shootings. That would be the first weapon.
But the problem is that then you ban that particular weapon and then the next one comes up. Next it's the AK-47, I suppose. The AK-47
if they continue to be used in these mass shootings. If you ban the AR-15 or if you ban assault weapons and then you see a pivot to other weapons of war being used to mass slaughter
weapons of war
individuals in this country, then yes, I think it is reasonable that we take action towards solving that problem.
Well, then pretty soon you're just going to have people doing Timmy McVeigh and loading up trucks with fertilizer.
Yeah, so you say it's a slippery slope. I think the difference is Americans agree, and even I think liberals largely agree that people should be able to defend themselves. People should be able to own Again,
AOC might disagree, but in general, yeah.
in general, we're talking about the large majorities of Americans here. This group, this at least 50 and up percent of us say yes, you should be able to arm yourself. Absolutely, totally fine. A lot of Democrats in Congress, I'm sure, that own guns. A lot of people who vote for Democrats who own guns.
I think most of the Dems in Congress, they don't own guns. They have people who own guns defending them because they're rich bitches.
Well, like I said, if you have a gun in your household, you're more likely to be, a victim of
not my guns
gun violence in some form.
I've got four.
Well, I'm hoping you keep them safe.
The thing is, this is actually a weapon of war. This is a cavalry saber. This is a weapon of war. The AR-15's never been used by a standing army in the history of the world. So you should qualify that.
Are you pretty good with that? With your
yes.
With the sword?
Yes.
Well, wait, I want to make sure, Jack, do you agree with what Styx said, that the AR-15 is not a weapon of war, as a weapon of war is defined?
Name a military that uses it.
I disagree. I do. So the terms that you want to use for describing it, if you want me to find a different way to label the weapon itself.
Has the weapon ever been used in war by a standing military? Yes or no?
So again, what I'm talking about is a weapon that's able to tear apart flesh in a military style manner. And
no, it's not. I wish it were. I'd get several of them.
Any regular person to need to own.
So in other words, well, if the AR-15 is a flesh-tearing, baby-killing, horrendous, object of war,
which
you would have to effectively
historically it is. You say this like we're talking about it in the abstract of what it can.
You're using emotional language. It tears kids apart.
We've seen what it has done, and that's the difference. Is that we've seen what it has done, and we've seen that this is the weapon of choice for those who wish to commit mass murders. This is their weapon of choice.
No, you're thinking of the AK-47.
Why is this so?
Why you're thinking of the AK-47 actually used by communist regimes to execute 100 million people after disarming them.
But why is it that the AR-15? Why is it these weapons are what are used in school shootings?
Because they are highly modular and they are highly available. For no other reason. If these people knew anything about guns, they wouldn't be using something chambered 5.56. They'd be using a 308 or some shit like that.
Why is it so highly available? Why does it need to be so highly available? That's my question.
Why does any weapon need to be highly available?
My question is, why do you think 18-year-olds should just be able to go out and purchase this weapon?
Because they're members of the militia.
What militia?
The militia is comprised of all able-bodied citizens of the age of majority, aka able to vote. Would you like me to get into some quotes, by the way? We can define the militia right now.
Again, I don't really think conservatives.
I'm not a conservative.
When they say, or those who talk about their militias really mean it when they say that they would, stand up against the tyrannical government.
It doesn't matter.
I totally understand the argument for doing so, but I think when you saw
right now the government's more inept than tyrannical. Joe Biden is completely out
sort of police-like state in 2020, and I didn't really see a lot of conservatives being too upset with what was happening.
So in other words, people are patient and generally peace-loving and reluctant to go and shoot people. Well, then we've come to the crux of the problem. You think that the average gun owner, the tens of millions of people who do have those sporting rifles are a big problem, as opposed to just saying some psychopaths shot up schools. And by the way, most of the mass shootings in the U.S. are gang-related. It's a gang member taking their Glock or their SIG and gunning down some Crips. I don't even see the problem, by the way.
In the U.S. What are those related to?
Excuse me?
You bring up these, and so I know that eventually we're going to get to the argument of, well, look at Chicago. Well, do you know what Chicago is right next to? Indiana, which has some of the loosest gun regulation in the United States.
Then why doesn't Indiana have the same problem Chicago has? So if it's all about the guns and the lax gun laws, why is Indiana relatively safe compared to Chicago?
Well, you did bring up the issue of gang violence, but if you're talking about why are these guns so attainable, but that's what I'm saying, something able to flourish because of the attainability of these weapons. And that's what I'm talking about is the issue here. You saw a shooter in Buffalo with their, manifesto, and then the shooter in Uvalde who pretty much copied it word for word to go on.
That's the power of the legacy media, baby. They encourage violence because it's good clickbait, including your friends at Midas Touch and the Lincoln Project. Anyway, let's say that we ban the AR-15.
Doing that. I
let's
think
say that
Midas
we
Touch is producing videos with, Jason Alexander encouraging people to watch the January 6th hearing. I don't think George Costanza
Excellent.
is really encouraging that
Yeah.
much violence.
If I may, let's say that we ban the AR-15, AK-47, the sporting rifle class. They're not weapons of war, but we've gotten rid of the semi-auto rifles. How is that actually going to stop anyone from shooting up a school? In some of these states, we already have mag restrictions, etc. How is a tactical pistol or even a pair of revolvers, etc., any fundamentally different? Because some of those rounds are way bigger than a 5.56. You get a couple 45s on your hip or something, you're going to do way more damage at close range.
I don't think that that's true.
If you think the 5.56 will do more damage than a 45 or a 50 cal or something like that, then it just shows ignorance.
I think these high-capacity magazines that are being able to be used with these specific weapons are dangerous and that they're unnecessary.
What about
again,
the caliber?
The point that I
type of
continue
rifle?
to return to is that defending yourself does not require an assault weapon. It doesn't.
The
It does
AR-15 is
require
not an
having
assault
that in
weapon.
your home.